On Turf Business TV today, I'm joined by James Fennessy. James is at Stevenage. Good morning, James.
Morning, Martin.
Let's start right at the beginning with you. How did you actually first get into the turf care industry?
I entered the industry when I was about 13. I started working weekends at Mill Hill Golf Club on the A1.
And you did that for how long?
I did that until the end of school. So I did that until I was about 15 or 16.
And then after Mill Hill, in terms of the part-time job there at the weekends, did that develop into a full-time job, or was it college? Or
so after investigating, because I enjoyed it that much, I found you could do a college course studying the industry, and I did that. I went into college.
Okay, where was that?
That was at Oaklands College in Hertfordshire. I did that for a year, and part of it was the work experience side, which is how I ended up at Arsenal Football Club.
Okay, so you started out in golf.
Yeah.
College put you on a placement, and then that was your first introduction to Arsenal. Was that working with Steve Braddock?
Yes, it was with Steve at Arsenal.
Okay, so you had was it a limited period there in terms of work experience, or was it a day every week or something? Or
so we had 4 weeks to get as much experience under our belt as we could, and I thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of it, working with Steve and the lads. Some of them are still there now.
What was it you enjoyed?
I enjoyed the fact that I was seeing a different side to football. Prior to that, if I ever went to a game, the pitch, you sort of said, wow, amazing, but it was always, right, now let's watch the game. And to see what actually went on behind the scenes within a sector that I found I loved was just overwhelmingly interesting.
So you're a football fan and then ended up working in football, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what was working with Steve like then?
It set me for how I am today.
Okay.
Everything that he did, I took on board. I forgot nothing, and part of what I do today stems through what I learned from Steve at Arsenal.
So that was a 4-week placement.
Yeah.
As part of your college work. What happened after that 4 weeks then, James?
So after the 4 weeks, I went into Steve's office and I said, is there any chance of a full-time role? His response at the time was no, we don't have the opening. And my reply was, fine, I'll work for free. I will come back. You don't need to pay me. And I'll get as much experience as I need, as long as you'll have me back.
And what did he say to that then?
He couldn't refuse, to be honest. He sort of trained me for 4 weeks. I picked it up fairly quickly, and it was sort of a no-brainer. Yep, come in for free, and we've got an extra body.
Okay. And did that arrangement last for several years?
No. No, I remember however long it was. I can't remember exactly, and I remember him just coming back to me and saying, "Yeah, there's a position if you want it."
And how long did you take to think about that then, James?
I was over the moon. Said it straight away.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, I'm in. I'm ready.
Okay. So from your point of view, then you've got pretty much your dream job at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Working with a top groundsman as a mentor.
Yeah.
And you're at Arsenal for how long?
Nearly 4 years, I think.
Okay. So work with some of the guys that are still now there.
Yeah.
That relationship with Steve has obviously set you up, as you said, going forward. What are the core things that you've taken? Give me some examples.
Overlook nothing. Always sort of question your decisions to get to the right answer. You might not always be there at the first time, but you keep questioning yourself, and eventually you get there. Standards, to absolutely never drop them. You know, they're always the highest they can be. And his work ethic as well. I picked up on that you know, you just do what you can to get the best results.
Okay. And 4 years in,
Yeah.
you then take the decision to take a role with Stevenage, or was there something in between?
No, I left the industry.
All right. Okay.
I left the industry completely, and it was going back to what we discussed earlier. Money and looking to the future to see there wasn't an opening drove me away from it.
So how long were you out of the industry then, James?
I was out of the industry for nearly 3 years.
Okay. So what was the pull to bring you back? I mean, you're off doing something else, which, you know, is irrelevant what that was, but you're doing something else, not in Turfcare. Why come back to Turfcare if it was, you know, the money was the issue previously?
It's just a love for what I did. I found that getting paid more wasn't making me happy. And I came back into the industry at a grassroots level, just to get a leg back in the door.
Okay. Loved it that much?
Yeah.
Or still love it that much?
Yeah.
Okay. So grassroots level, working, where was that?
That was for a club called London Maccabi in Boreham Wood.
Oh, okay. And you spent a little while there. And was it then Stevenage that came on the horizon, or was there other things in between? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did the role at Stevenage come around then, James?
So the role at Stevenage came around. My wife knew a physio who happened to be doing some work for Stevenage, and he said to my wife, he said, you know, this role's come up at Stevenage. Would James be interested? And that was my opening. That was my sort of I'm going to go for that, give it my all, and here I am.
Okay, so that was what? How long have you been at Stevenage now, James? Sorry, is it?
Approaching 9 years.
9 years. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so you obviously like it there. Is it a very different setup now to what it was when you joined? Have you put your stamp on it?
Oh, it's completely different. The hardest thing here was flipping mentalities around. They just purchased nearly 50 acres for a training ground, and that hadn't been quite developed yet. So there was a project there, and that's why I was brought in to do that, to flip it round, and to give it a reputation for being a good quality training ground to attract players.
Okay, so that was your brief. Your own personal aspirations there. Have you lived up to what you hoped to achieve?
I believe so. I believe so. I mean, there's always room to improve, but I feel with the way budgets are restricted here at this level, we've probably got the most out of what we can do. We make minor adjustments to improve year after year, and we're still doing that. Along the years, the role grew. So the head groundsman at the stadium left, and I took that.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Okay, so you've grown into the role of head groundsman. If there was one thing that you've actually changed that's had the biggest impact, what would that be, James?
Oh, the biggest impact. I think I think putting Stevenage Football Club on the map for developing young talent.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest impact that I could have had, and I have had.
And by young talent, you mean in terms of the Turfcare side of things, or are you talking on the football side of things?
Purely Turfcare.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was something I was going to come on to. Steve, who you worked with for quite a while, has got a real reputation for developing talent, and there's numerous guys around the industry who I won't list who've gone on to bigger things and better things than perhaps they would have done if they hadn't been working with Steve. You seems to have taken on that mantle, and you say Stevenage has a reputation for developing talent. I think you have. Is that something? Obviously, if you think that's the thing that's made the biggest difference, is that the thing you're most proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hadn't looked at it at all until Steve recognised it 18 months ago, I think it was. I just sort of got on with it. The young lads came through the door, and I trained them the only way I knew how. And they started going off and blossoming elsewhere, and that's when it was picked up. I was just getting on with what I thought I did best.
And do you find that frustrating? You get them to that level, and then off they go like butterflies somewhere else?
No. I used to, not so much anymore, because I know that they're restricted here, and for them to progress, they need to move on, and by doing that, they progress further. I've even helped them leave, admittedly.
Okay. So there's been roles there, and you've said you should go for this, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. And I always encourage them to come to me if they're looking. It's always, I've invested time in you. Do me the decency of telling me that you're looking, and I will help you do that. Okay. Yeah. So
the reason you're doing this, is this kind of adapting to the circumstance you're in because of finances to get the numbers of people you need? You're probably having to work with apprentices, and then they get to a stage that you can't actually afford to keep them, or is it more a case that you actually enjoy the process? What's the prime mover on this one?
They will. An apprentice here will complete the course and then be moved straight into a full-time contract. And from there, we cannot compete with some of the bigger clubs. So if roles do come up, they just naturally move on. And from our point of view, getting new staff through the door, it's definitely the cheapest way to do it.
Okay. But
also probably the hardest.
Is it not inefficient because you get them to level and then you lose them? Would you?
Yeah, completely. It's completely inefficient.
It's the reality. That's the only way you can work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've built this framework, and guys are coming through and developing. Is there anybody in particular that you're really pleased to see is blossoming elsewhere?
Yeah, there's a few lads who have gone off. There's two lads at Watford.
Okay.
We're doing really well. One at the stadium, who I know will be a head groundsman in the future. I don't know how soon that will be, but I know he's got that capability. There's also a lad at Arsenal currently, who again has massive potential, absolutely massive potential.
So Steve and Scott must love you for developing that, and then they've got almost a production line for people to come in, have they?
Yeah.
Okay. When we look at the wider industry, what are your frustrations with it, if any?
It's always going to be finances, I think, with the industry. I think you see, the Premier League is a fantastic business model, and that's always going to be there. You can't change that, and I don't think it's right asking them to filter money down either, because that's what the Premier League has done. They've created that so that clubs can earn that money. But where the EFL is concerned, there are so many clubs there, and the money, as it filters down through the leagues, especially being in League Two for so long, the budget constraints are massive. They're absolutely massive. That's the biggest frustration. If the money was there, I know I could personally develop twice as many staff to the same standard.
Okay. So, but the development of people obviously is extremely important to you. Other than that, what else do you love about the industry?
I love that you could, or you can, pick up the phone to any groundsman or head groundsman within the industry about concerns, about issues that might be arising. You might see something on the pitch that you're not quite sure of, and everyone will respond. Everyone will sort of say, right, no, do this, do that. This is what this is. This is what that is. I don't think there's any shortage of that.
Okay. I think Steve Braddock has talked very highly about you. Certainly you seem to be making a mark in terms of the development of other people. What about you, James? Are you looking to progress, or do you feel this is the role that you want? And as you said earlier, job satisfaction, I think, is more important to you in many respects than money. Is this where you want to stay, or have you got aspirations, shall we call them?
No, I think there are always aspirations to move on, find a bigger, more challenging role. And I think it would be brilliant to find a club with the financial clout to back what I do. To say that there's an untapped resource of young future groundsmen out there that we can bring in, and we could do it on a mass scale. Moving on is definitely in my crosshairs.
Okay. Well, James, fascinating to talk to you. It's been an enjoyable 30 minutes or so. I really do hope we can catch up and see one another face to face again soon. All I can say to you is, from everything I hear, you're doing a fantastic job there in the way that you're running your outfit, and particularly in developing those youngsters. So keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Thank you very much.